Millionaire is sentenced to pay $819 to the Arab until a poor 7-year-old girl reveals the shocking truth, leaving everyone pale in the courtroom. Before we unfold this emotional journey of loneliness and grief, let us know your location and subscribe for more powerful stories. The gavel's thunderous crack echoed through Manhattan's district court as Judge Harrison's voice boomed across the packed courtroom. Mr. James Whitmore, you are hereby ordered to pay $899 million in damages to Mr. Rashid Al-Mansouri within 60 days, or face immediate asset seizure. 28-year-old James Whitmore felt his world collapse. The tech billionaire who had built his empire from nothing watched helplessly as his life's work crumbled around him. His hands trembled as he gripped the defendant's table, his knuckles white with desperation. The courtroom erupted in whispers and camera flashes as reporters captured what they believed was the downfall of one of America's youngest self-made billionaires. "This is insane," James whispered to his lead attorney, Margaret Stevens, a silver-haired woman who had commanded respect in courtrooms for 30 years. "The contract clearly stated different terms. I would never have agreed to risk my entire company on a single deal." Margaret shook her head grimly, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed the damning documents one final time. The Arabic translation Al-Mansouri provided seems ironclad. "Our team of expert translators couldn't find any discrepancies. I'm sorry, James. In 3 decades of practice, I've never seen such a perfectly crafted legal trap." In the gallery behind them, Rashid Al-Mansouri smiled coldly, his dark eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The 45-year-old oil executive had waited 3 years for this moment. His perfectly pressed Italian suit and diamond cufflinks spoke of wealth beyond imagination, but his expression revealed something darker. Revenge served ice cold. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and whispered something to his team of 12 high-powered attorneys, all of whom nodded in perfect synchronization. "Justice has been served," Al-Mansouri announced to the waiting crowd of reporters outside the courthouse steps. "Mr. Whitmore thought he could outsmart me with clever American business tricks. But contracts are sacred documents, and he will pay every single penny he owes." This is what happens when arrogant young Americans try to deceive experienced international businessmen. James stumbled out of the courthouse, his mind reeling as protesters chanted outside. Some supported him, calling the judgment excessive, while others demanded he pay immediately. His security team formed a protective barrier as he made his way to the waiting limousine, but nothing could shield him from the crushing weight of financial ruin. 3 years ago, he had signed what he thought was a standard partnership agreement to expand his revolutionary renewable energy technology into Middle Eastern markets. The original contract was in English, clearly outlining a modest licensing deal worth millions, not hundreds of millions. But Al-Mansouri had insisted on an Arabic version for his board's approval, claiming it was merely a formality for cultural sensitivity. Now somehow, that Arabic translation contained clauses that would bankrupt him completely, demanding not just money, but his patents, his technology, and his future. That evening, James sat in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, staring at the legal documents spread across his mahogany desk. His phone buzzed constantly with calls from panicked investors, desperate employees, and vulture-like media outlets. But he ignored them all. The city sparkled below him like a cruel reminder of everything he was about to lose. His assistant, Patricia, knocked softly. "Mr. Whitmore, there's a woman here with her daughter. Says it's urgent about the case." James looked up wearily, his tie loosened, and his usually perfect hair disheveled. "I'm not seeing anyone tonight, Patricia. Cancel all meetings for the rest of the week." "Sir, she says her daughter can read Arabic. She's only 7 years old, but she claims she spotted something wrong in the news footage of the trial." "7?" James laughed bitterly, the sound echoing in his empty penthouse. What could a child possibly understand about international contract law? "Please, Mr. Whitmore," a desperate voice called from the hallway. My daughter Emma noticed something in the news footage. She's been studying languages since she was 4. She says the man on TV was lying about what the contract really says. Please, just 5 minutes. James hesitated, staring at his reflection in the dark window. He had nothing left to lose, and maybe, just maybe, fresh eyes might see what his expensive legal team had missed. With a heavy sigh, he nodded to Patricia. Sarah Mitchell clutched her daughter's small hand as they entered the luxurious penthouse, both of them feeling overwhelmed by the opulent surroundings. At 31, Sarah's auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her simple blue dress, her only good dress, couldn't hide the exhaustion in her emerald green eyes. She had been working double shifts as a night nurse at Mount Sinai Hospital to support Emma ever since her husband, Michael, died in Afghanistan 2 years ago. The apartment was a testament to James's success. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Manhattan, original artwork worth more than most people's houses, and furniture that screamed money. Sarah felt distinctly out of place, but Emma seemed unfazed by the luxury, her attention focused entirely on the man who needed their help. Emma Mitchell, barely tall enough to see over James's massive coffee table, had the most extraordinary violet eyes James had ever seen. Her dark hair was braided neatly by her mother's careful hands, and she wore a yellow dress that had clearly seen better days, but was clean and pressed with obvious care. Despite her small stature, her posture radiated confidence far beyond her 7 years. "Hello, Mr. Whitmore," Emma said with startling maturity, her voice clear and strong. "I'm sorry about your troubles. I saw you on the news and you looked very sad. But that man on TV isn't telling the truth about what the papers say." James knelt down to Emma's level, intrigued despite his emotional exhaustion. The child's direct gaze was unsettling in its intensity. "What do you mean, sweetheart? Do you really understand Arabic?" Emma opened a worn tablet that Sarah handed her, clearly a budget model from the library's technology lending program. "Mama got this from the library program for low-income families. I use it to practice languages every day, after school and before bed. When I saw the Arabic text on the news during your trial, I noticed something wrong immediately." She navigated to a screenshot she had carefully captured from the courthouse footage. "See this word here?" Her small finger pointed to specific Arabic text. "The man said it means, 'shall pay in full immediately,' but it actually means, 'may consider payment when mutually convenient.' That's a huge difference. And this phrase here?" She swiped to another section. "He translated it as all assets and future earnings must be surrendered, but it really says reasonable compensation as mutually agreed upon by both parties." James felt his heart skip as hope flickered for the first time in months. "Emma, are you absolutely certain about this? This could change everything." Emma nodded solemnly, her expression serious beyond her years. "I've been studying Arabic for 2 years now. My daddy was stationed in Jordan before he died, and he started teaching me when I was 5. I kept learning after he went to heaven because it made me feel close to him, like he was still teaching me things." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she watched her brilliant daughter explain the complex mistranslations with the patience of a seasoned teacher. "Emma has what her doctors call a photographic memory and an incredible gift for languages. She speaks 5 languages fluently already, and she's teaching herself 3 more. Her teachers say they've never seen anything like it." James stood up slowly, his mind racing with possibilities. Could this extraordinary child be the key to saving everything he had worked for? "Emma, would you be willing to help me prove this in court? It would mean testifying in front of a lot of people, including the man who lied about the translation." Before Emma could answer, Sarah stepped protectively in front of her daughter, her maternal instincts overriding everything else. "Absolutely not. I won't have Emma involved in this kind of high-stakes legal battle. She's just a child, Mr. Whitmore. She's already lost her father. I won't risk putting her in danger, too." "But, Mama," Emma said quietly, tugging on her mother's dress, "if we don't help Mr. Whitmore, he'll lose everything he worked for. And that wouldn't be fair if the man really did lie about what the contract says. James saw the internal struggle in Sarah's eyes, the battle between wanting to protect her daughter and knowing that Emma might be the only person who could expose the truth. "Mrs. Mitchell, I understand your concerns completely. If Emma helps us, I'll make sure she has the best protection money can buy. Child psychologists, security experts, whatever you both need to feel safe." Sarah shook her head firmly. "It's not about money, Mr. Whitmore. Emma has already lost her father to causes bigger than our family. I won't risk losing her too, not even to help you save your company." Emma looked up at her mother with those remarkable violet eyes. "Mama, remember what Daddy used to say? That we should always stand up for what's right, even when it's scary, even when it's hard." The room fell silent as Sarah battled between her protective instincts and her late husband's values, while outside the city sparkled with lights that seemed to mock the gravity of the decision that would change all their lives forever. The next morning brought chaos to James's world that he had never experienced, even during his company's most challenging growth periods. His team of lawyers arrived at dawn, skeptical but intrigued by Emma's discovery. Margaret Stevens, initially dismissive of involving a child in such serious legal proceedings, changed her tune completely when Emma effortlessly read through complex legal documents in Arabic, catching nuances and subtleties that their team of expert translators had somehow missed. "This is absolutely unprecedented," Margaret muttered, adjusting her reading glasses as Emma explained yet another deliberate mistranslation with the patience of a university professor. "In 30 years of practicing international law, I've never seen such systematic and deliberate deception in translation work. This isn't just fraud, it's criminal conspiracy." Emma sat cross-legged on the plush carpet of James's study, completely at ease, despite being surrounded by legal papers that dwarfed her small frame. Her tablet was connected to James's large wall-mounted monitor, displaying the original Arabic contract alongside Al-Mansouri's fraudulent English translation in side-by-side comparison. The differences were staggering once pointed out by someone who truly understood both languages. "Look at this section right here," Emma pointed with the confidence of a seasoned attorney, her small finger tracing the Arabic text. "Mr. Al-Mansouri told the judge that this clause requires Mr. Whitmore to surrender all his patents and intellectual property immediately upon any contract dispute. But what it actually says is that he would share technological insights for mutual benefit during the partnership. That's completely different. One makes Mr. Whitmore a partner, the other makes him a slave." James felt hope stirring in his chest for the first time in months, mixed with growing anger at the elaborate deception that had nearly destroyed his life. "Emma, you're absolutely brilliant. How is it possible that our team of expensive translators, people with decades of experience, missed these obvious discrepancies?" Emma's expression grew serious beyond her years, and she looked directly at James with uncomfortable honesty. "I think maybe they weren't really trying to find the truth, Mr. Whitmore. Sometimes grown-ups see what they expect to see, or what someone pays them to see, but I don't have any reason to lie about what these words mean." Sarah had been quietly observing from the corner of the room, still wearing her nursing scrubs from her night shift at the hospital. Dark circles under her eyes testified to her exhaustion, but her attention was completely focused on her daughter's remarkable performance. "Emma, sweetheart, we need to discuss this as a family before we go any further. This is much bigger than just helping someone with their problems." But before they could continue their family discussion, James's assistant Patricia rushed into the study, her usually composed demeanor cracked with obvious panic. "Mr. Whitmore, Al-Mansouri's legal team is requesting an immediate emergency meeting. They say they have new evidence that will seal the case permanently and prevent any appeals." Margaret's phone buzzed insistently with an urgent message from the courthouse. She read it quickly, her experienced face darkening with each word. "James, this is worse than we thought. They've filed for expedited asset seizure with the court. They want to start claiming your properties, your patents, and your company assets tomorrow morning. They're not giving you the full 60 days the judge granted." Emma stood up abruptly from her place on the floor, her small hands clenched into fists with righteous indignation. "That's not fair. They're cheating, and now they're trying to cheat even more." "Welcome to the real world, sweetheart," James said sadly, his brief moment of hope fading as reality crashed back down on him. "Sometimes the bad guys win, especially when they have more money and more lawyers than you do." "No," Emma said firmly, her voice carrying a steel determination that startled everyone in the room. "My daddy didn't die protecting our country so that liars could steal from good people. We have to fight this, and we have to win." Sarah knelt beside her daughter, torn between overwhelming pride at Emma's courage and paralyzing fear for her safety. "Emma, fighting isn't always the answer. Sometimes walking away is the smartest thing to do. But telling the truth is always the right thing to do," Emma replied, looking directly into her mother's eyes with wisdom that seemed impossible in someone so young. "And Mr. Whitmore needs someone who can tell the truth in Arabic. I can do that, Mama. I can help save his company and all the people who work for him and their families too." James watched the exchange between mother and daughter, seeing Sarah's internal battle played out on her expressive face. He understood her fear completely. Emma was extraordinary, but she was still just 7 years old, about to face one of the most powerful and ruthless businessmen in the world in a legal arena where billions of dollars were at stake. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, storm clouds were gathering over Manhattan's skyline, as if nature itself sensed the brewing conflict that would soon shake the very foundations of justice and truth. Sarah Mitchell made her decision that afternoon, but not without establishing conditions that surprised everyone in the room with their thoroughness and determination. Sitting in James's elegant conference room, surrounded by mahogany furniture and original oil paintings, she laid out her terms with the steel resolve of a woman who had survived military widowhood and single parenthood in one of the world's most expensive cities. "If Emma helps you fight this legal battle, I want complete and total transparency about everything," Sarah declared, her voice steady despite her racing heart and the magnitude of what she was agreeing to. "No secrets, no hiding her from media attention if this goes public, and absolutely no putting her in any situation where she could be physically or emotionally threatened or intimidated." James nodded immediately, recognizing the wisdom in her demands. "Agreed completely. What else do you need from me?" Emma's education and normal life continue without interruption. She attends her regular public school, keeps her after-school tutoring program, maintains her routine. This legal case doesn't consume her childhood or change who she is as a person. Of course, that's non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned, too. Emma, who had been listening intently while coloring in a legal pad with crayons that James's assistant had found for her, suddenly looked up and spoke with characteristic directness. "I have conditions too, and they're important." The adults turned to her in surprise, momentarily forgetting that this remarkable 7-year-old had opinions and demands of her own. Sarah smiled despite the gravity of the situation, proud of her daughter's assertiveness. "Okay, honey. What are your conditions? If we prove that Mr. Al-Mansouri lied to the judge and tried to steal Mr. Whitmore's company, he has to apologize publicly to everyone he hurt," and her voice grew stronger and more determined. "He has to donate lots of money to military families like ours, because lying to steal money is the same as stealing money, and stealing is wrong no matter who does it." Margaret Stevens leaned back in her leather chair, visibly impressed by the child's moral clarity. "Emma, you have better instincts for justice than lawyers with 20 years of experience. Those are excellent conditions." That evening, while Emma slept peacefully in the penthouse's beautifully appointed guest room, Sarah had reluctantly agreed to stay for security reasons and convenience. James and Sarah found themselves alone on the wraparound terrace overlooking the glittering expanse of Manhattan below them. "I'm absolutely terrified," Sarah admitted quietly, her hands gripping the railing as she watched the endless stream of lights flowing through the city streets 40 stories below. Emma is literally all I have left in this world. If something happens to her because of this legal fight. James stood beside her, close enough to catch the subtle scent of her lavender shampoo and notice how the city lights reflected in her worried green eyes. She'll be safer than the President of the United States. I promise you that, with everything I have. It's not just physical safety I'm worried about, Sarah continued, her voice barely audible above the distant sounds of the city. Emma already carries too much emotional responsibility for a 7-year-old child. She's been my translator when I deal with Emma's school, my tech support when things break, my emotional support when I miss Michael too much to function. Now she's trying to save your entire company and everyone who works for you. When does she get to just be a normal kid who worries about toys and cartoons? James felt a pang of guilt he hadn't expected, recognizing the burden they were about to place on someone so young. We can stop this right now if you want. I'll find another way to fight this, or I'll just accept defeat and start over. Sarah shook her head firmly. No, Emma's right about this being bigger than money or business. If Al-Mansuri gets away with this kind of elaborate fraud, how many other people will he destroy the same way? How many other families will lose everything because someone with power decided to lie? They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes before James asked gently, "Tell me about Michael. What kind of man was he?" Sarah's face softened with a mixture of love, memory, and persistent pain. He was a military translator and cultural liaison, actually. Spoke 6 languages fluently by the time he was 25. That's where Emma gets her incredible gift. It's definitely genetic. Michael used to say that languages were bridges between hearts and minds, not just collections of words. He believed that understanding each other was the key to peace. He would be so proud of what Emma's trying to do. He'd be proud of you, too, James said softly, meaning every word. You're raising an incredible daughter under circumstances that would break most people. Sarah turned to look at him directly, seeing past the billionaire facade and expensive clothes to the man who was losing everything he had worked for. What about your family? Do you have anyone to support you through this nightmare? James's expression darkened with old pain. My parents died in a car accident when I was 22, just as my company was starting to take off. I built this entire empire as much for their memory as for personal success. Losing everything feels like losing them all over again, like I'm failing them, even in death. Before Sarah could respond with words of comfort, a small noise from inside the apartment caught their attention. Emma appeared in the doorway leading to the terrace, her dark hair tousled from sleep and clutching a worn, stuffed elephant that had clearly been loved for years. "Mama, I had a dream about Daddy," Emma said sleepily. "He said we're doing the right thing by helping Mr. Whitmore, but we need to be very, very careful because the bad man has dangerous friends who don't want the truth to come out." Sarah and James exchanged meaningful glances, both wondering how much of Emma's wisdom came from dreams and how much from a 7-year-old's remarkable intuition about the dangerous game they were about to play. The revelation came at exactly 6:17 a.m., when Emma woke up screaming, her voice echoing through the quiet penthouse like a siren. Sarah rushed to her daughter's bedside in the luxurious guest room, her heart pounding as she found Emma sitting bolt upright in the king-sized bed, her violet eyes wide with fear and sudden, terrible realization. "Mama, I remember where I've seen the bad man before," Emma exclaimed, her small body trembling with the force of the memory that had jolted her from sleep. "I know who he is." James appeared in the doorway within seconds, still in his silk pajamas but fully alert, alarmed by the commotion and the obvious terror in Emma's voice. "What's wrong? What happened?" "The night after Daddy's funeral," Emma continued, her voice barely above a whisper as the terrible memory crystallized in her photographic mind. "There was a man at the memorial reception. He came up to us at the church afterward, and said he was sorry for our loss, but he was asking really strange questions about Daddy's work in Jordan and what kinds of documents Daddy translated. Sarah felt her blood run cold as pieces of a puzzle she hadn't even known existed began falling into place. Emma, sweetheart, are you absolutely sure about this? It was dark and you were very upset that day. Emma nodded vigorously, her certainty absolute. He had the exact same voice as the man on TV yesterday, Mama, and he was wearing a ring with a big red stone that caught the church lights, just like the one Mr. Al-Mansouri had on his hand in the courtroom. But there's something else. He knew things about Daddy's work that he shouldn't have known. He knew about specific meetings and documents that were supposed to be secret. James sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, his mind racing as the implications hit him like a physical blow. Sarah, what kind of translation work was Michael doing in Jordan? Do you have any details about his assignments? Standard military interpretation and cultural liaison work, Sarah replied, but her voice carried new uncertainty as she tried to remember details she had never questioned before. Contract negotiations, diplomatic meetings, document translation. He never talked about specifics because he said most of it was classified military information. I never pushed him for details because I respected his commitment to security. Emma grabbed her tablet from the bedside table and quickly navigated to news footage of the trial with the practiced efficiency of someone far older. When Al-Mansouri's face appeared on the screen in high definition, she pointed with absolute certainty. That's him. That's definitely the man who talked to us at Daddy's funeral. He knew things about Daddy's work that made me uncomfortable even then, but I was too sad to really think about it. The implications hit James like a tsunami of realization. Sarah, what if this entire legal case isn't about business fraud at all? What if Al-Mansouri targeted me specifically because of something Michael discovered or translated while he was stationed overseas? Before Sarah could respond, Margaret Stevens called with information that would change everything they thought they knew about their situation. James put the call on speaker so Sarah and Emma could hear the urgent update. James, you need to hear this immediately. Margaret's voice was tight with controlled excitement and fear. I've been digging into Al-Mansouri's background all night with my investigator contacts. 3 years ago, right around the time you signed that contract with him, he was under investigation by military intelligence for attempting to bribe American translators and cultural liaisons in the Middle East to alter or suppress certain documents. James gripped the phone tighter. What kind of documents? Oil rights, mineral extraction permits, and most importantly, evidence of illegal arms dealing through supposedly legitimate business channels. The investigation was ultimately classified and dropped due to what was officially called lack of concrete evidence and national security concerns. Sarah's voice was barely audible. What unit was involved in that investigation? Michael's unit, Sarah, your husband's translation unit, was specifically tasked with investigating Al-Mansouri's business dealings. And here's the most disturbing part. The investigation was mysteriously dropped and all files were sealed just 2 weeks before Michael died in what was officially ruled an equipment malfunction during a routine patrol. Emma looked up at her mother with tears streaming down her face, but her voice was steady with grim understanding beyond her years. Mama, was Daddy murdered because he found out something bad about this man? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah pulled Emma close, her own hands shaking as she realized that her husband's death might not have been the tragic accident the military had told her it was. James felt rage building in his chest, hot and consuming. He's been planning this for 3 years. The contract, the fraudulent translation, the lawsuit, everything. It's not about the money at all. It's about covering up whatever Michael discovered that could expose him. Emma wiped her tears with the back of her small hand and looked directly at James with a determination that was startling in its intensity. Then we have to stop him, Mr. Whitmore. Not just for your company and your employees, but for my daddy and all the other people he might have hurt. We have to make sure everyone knows the truth about what kind of man he really is." Sarah looked at her extraordinary 7-year-old daughter, this child who had just connected investigative dots that seasoned professionals had missed, and realized that Emma hadn't just inherited her father's gift for languages. She had inherited Michael's instincts for uncovering dangerous truths that powerful men would kill to keep hidden. Outside, dawn was breaking over Manhattan in shades of gold and red, but inside the penthouse, 3 lives had just become inextricably linked by a conspiracy that reached far deeper than corporate fraud, threatening to expose secrets that powerful men had already proven they would murder to protect. The Manhattan courthouse buzzed with unprecedented anticipation as legal history was about to unfold before a packed gallery of journalists, legal experts, and curious spectators. Word had leaked to the media that a 7-year-old child would testify as an expert witness in Arabic translation, drawing international attention and crews from major news networks around the world. Judge Harrison had agreed to the highly unusual proceedings only after reviewing Emma's credentials and test results from 3 independent linguistic experts, all of whom had confirmed her extraordinary abilities. Al-Mansouri sat at the plaintiff's table like a king holding court, his confidence seemingly unwavering despite the unexpected turn of events that had delayed his certain victory. His team of 12 high-powered attorneys surrounded him like an impenetrable fortress of legal expertise, their expensive suits and briefcases creating an intimidating wall of professional authority. But James noticed something different in the oil executive's dark eyes when his gaze fell on Emma, a flicker of genuine concern mixed with something that looked almost like recognition. Emma wore her very best dress, a navy blue outfit with white trim that Sarah had bought specifically for this moment using money she could barely spare. Despite her small stature in the adult-sized courtroom, she carried herself with remarkable poise as she walked down the center aisle toward the witness stand, her hand briefly touching her mother's for strength. A special wooden step had been provided by the court so she could reach the microphone properly. "Please state your full name and age for the court record," the court clerk requested gently, her voice softer than usual in deference to the child witness. "My name is Emma Rose Mitchell. I'm 7 years old, and I'll be 8 years old on December 15th, Emma replied clearly, her voice carrying throughout the packed courtroom with surprising strength and confidence. Margaret Stevens approached for direct examination, her usually stern demeanor softened with genuine affection for the brave child who might save her client's life's work. "Emma, can you tell the court about your language studies and how you learned to speak Arabic?" "I speak English, Arabic, Spanish, French, and Mandarin Chinese fluently," Emma began confidently, looking directly at the jury, as Margaret had coached her to do. "I also understand some German and Italian, but I'm still learning those. I started learning Arabic when my daddy was stationed in Jordan with the army. He said that languages help people understand each other better and build bridges between different cultures." In the gallery, Sarah watched nervously as her daughter faced the most important and dangerous moment of her young life. James sat beside her, his hand instinctively reaching out to squeeze Sarah's in support, both of them acutely aware that Emma's testimony could either save James's company or put their family in even greater danger. "Emma, have you had the opportunity to review the contract between Mr. Whitmore and Mr. Al-Mansouri?" Margaret continued, establishing the foundation for Emma's expert testimony. "Yes, ma'am. I've studied both the original Arabic document and the English translation that was presented to this court during the first trial," Emma replied with the precision of a seasoned expert witness. "And what did you discover during your analysis?" Emma turned slightly toward the jury, maintaining eye contact just as Margaret had taught her during their preparation sessions. The English translation contains many serious mistakes. Some might be simple errors that anyone could make, but many of them change the meaning of the contract so dramatically that they have to be deliberate lies designed to trick people. Al-Mansouri's lead attorney, David Chen, A sharp-featured man, known throughout New York for his aggressive cross-examination tactics, stood up immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. This child cannot possibly understand the complex legal implications of sophisticated international contractual language. This is a courtroom, not an elementary school show-and-tell session." Judge Harrison looked down at Emma thoughtfully, his expression serious but kind. "Emma, do you understand the difference between accidental mistakes in translation and deliberate lies intended to deceive someone?" "Yes, sir," Emma replied without hesitation. "If I accidentally say dog when I mean cat, that's just a mistake that anyone could make. But if I say dog when I know it's really a cat and I want to trick someone into believing something that isn't true, that's a lie. And lying in court is especially wrong because it hurts innocent people." A ripple of appreciative laughter went through the courtroom at Emma's simple but profound explanation. Judge Harrison nodded approvingly, clearly impressed by the child's moral clarity. "Objection overruled. Continue, Mrs. Stevens." For the next hour, Emma methodically dismantled al-Mansouri's fraudulent translation with the precision of a master craftsman and the honesty of a child who simply wanted to tell the truth. Her small finger traced Arabic text displayed on the courtroom's large screen, while she explained each discrepancy with patient detail. "This word right here," Emma pointed to a crucial section, her voice growing stronger with confidence, "was translated as must surrender all assets and patents immediately upon any dispute. But in Arabic, what it actually says is, should consider fair compensation and technology sharing over a reasonable time frame. That's not just different, it's the complete opposite meaning." James watched in amazement as his 7-year-old savior calmly exposed years of calculated deception with the thoroughness of a professional investigator. But what struck him most deeply was watching Sarah's face, the incredible mixture of pride and terror as her daughter stood alone against one of the most powerful and dangerous men in international business. When Margaret finished her direct examination, David Chen approached Emma for cross-examination, his expression predatory despite the fact that he was facing a child. The courtroom fell silent as everyone waited to see how he would handle questioning someone so young. "Emma, isn't it possible that you've made mistakes in your translation? After all, you're only 7 years old, and even adult experts sometimes disagree about complex language," Chen began, his tone condescending. Emma looked at him steadily, unflinching under his intimidating stare. "Yes, sir. It's always possible that anyone can make mistakes. That's exactly why I checked my work 3 different times and asked 2 other Arabic speakers to verify every single translation I made. They both agreed with me completely that Mr. al-Mansouri's translation was full of lies." Chen's confidence faltered slightly as murmurs of approval rippled through the gallery. "But you've never worked as a professional translator, have you? You have no formal training or certification." "No, sir. I haven't worked as a professional translator," Emma agreed calmly, "but I know the difference between truth and lies. And Mr. al-Mansouri's translation is full of lies that were designed to steal everything Mr. Whitmore worked for." The courtroom fell completely silent as Emma's words hung in the air with the weight of absolute truth. Al-Mansouri shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his mask of confidence finally beginning to crack as he realized that a 7-year-old girl with an extraordinary gift and an unshakable moral compass might be about to destroy everything he had worked 3 years to steal. Chen continued his aggressive cross-examination, clearly frustrated by Emma's unshakable honesty. "Emma, you claim Mr. al-Mansouri deliberately lied. But isn't it possible these are simply cultural differences in interpretation?" Emma tilted her head thoughtfully. "No, sir. When someone says red in Arabic but translates it as blue in English, that's not culture, that's lying. Words have meanings, and Mr. al-Mansouri changed those meanings on purpose." The courtroom erupted in whispers as Emma's simple analogy resonated with the jury. Judge Harrison called for order, but the damage to al-Mansouri's case was visible on every face. "Your Honor," Chen said desperately. "I move to have this child's testimony stricken. She's clearly been coached to say these things." Emma spoke up before anyone could object. "Nobody told me what to say, sir. My mama always taught me to tell the truth, even when it's scary. And the truth is that Mr. Al-Mansouri lied about what these papers say." Margaret seized the moment. "Emma, can you show the court one more example of these alleged mistranslations?" Emma nodded and pointed to the screen. "This section here says in Arabic, 'Partnership dissolves amicably with shared benefits.' But Mr. Al-Mansouri told everyone it means immediate forfeiture of all business interests. Those are opposite meanings." Al-Mansouri suddenly stood up, his composure finally cracking. "This is ridiculous. You're letting a child destroy my reputation." "Mr. Al-Mansouri, sit down," Judge Harrison commanded sternly. "You'll have your chance to respond." But Al-Mansouri's outburst had revealed his desperation to everyone in the courtroom. James watched as the man who had nearly destroyed his life began to unravel before their eyes. Emma continued calmly. "There are 17 major mistranslations in the document. Each one benefits Mr. Al-Mansouri and hurts Mr. Whitmore. That can't be an accident." The jury foreman leaned forward, clearly captivated by Emma's testimony. Sarah gripped James's hand tighter, amazed by her daughter's courage under such intense pressure. Chen made one last attempt. "Emma, what if I told you that our Arabic experts disagree with your interpretation?" Emma looked at him with innocent directness. "Then they're either wrong or they're lying too. But the words say what they say, and I'm telling the truth about what they mean." The simplicity and honesty of her response silenced the courtroom. Even Chen seemed at a loss for how to challenge such straightforward integrity. Margaret concluded, "No further questions, Your Honor." As Emma stepped down from the witness stand, Al-Mansouri's legal team huddled frantically. Their carefully constructed case was crumbling under the weight of a 7-year-old's unwavering honesty. Judge Harrison called for a brief recess, and as the courtroom emptied, Al-Mansouri approached James with barely controlled fury. "You think you've won? This isn't over." James stood protectively near Sarah and Emma. "The truth has a way of coming out, doesn't it?" "Some truths are dangerous," Al-Mansouri whispered menacingly before his lawyers pulled him away. Emma overheard and looked up at James. What did he mean about dangerous truths? Sarah knelt beside her daughter. "Some people don't like it when others tell the truth about bad things they've done." Emma nodded solemnly. "Like what he did to Daddy." The question hung in the air as they realized this battle was far from over. Al-Mansouri's threat suggested he would stop at nothing to protect his secrets, even if it meant silencing a brave 7-year-old and her family. James made a silent vow that he would protect Emma and Sarah no matter what it cost him. Some things were more important than money or business, like justice, truth, and the safety of the extraordinary family that had saved his life. That evening in James's penthouse, the atmosphere was tense despite their courtroom victory. Emma had exposed the fraud brilliantly, but Al-Mansouri's threatening words echoed in everyone's minds. Sarah paced nervously while Emma sat quietly with her tablet, researching something with intense concentration. "Mama, Mr. Whitmore," Emma said suddenly, "I found something important about Mr. Al-Mansouri online." James and Sarah gathered around as Emma showed them a news article from 3 years ago. "Look at this. It says here that Daddy's unit was investigating illegal weapons sales in Jordan, and Mr. Al-Mansouri's company was mentioned as a person of interest." Sarah's face went pale. "Emma, where did you find this?" "I used the library database. They have old newspaper archives. I searched for Daddy's unit and Mr. Al-Mansouri's name together." Emma's fingers flew across the tablet. "There's more. Look at this timeline." She had created a detailed chart showing dates and events. Daddy's investigation started in January. Mr. Al-Mansouri was questioned in March. Daddy died in April. The investigation was closed in May. Then Mr. Al-Mansouri contacted Mr. Whitmore in June with the fake contract. James stared at the timeline, amazed by Emma's analytical skills. "Emma, this is incredible detective work. You're showing a clear pattern of cause and effect." It's not just detective work, Emma said seriously. It's proof that Mr. Al-Mansouri killed my daddy to stop the investigation, then tricked Mr. Whitmore to cover his tracks. Sarah sat down heavily, overwhelmed by the implications. Emma, that's a very serious accusation. We can't prove, but we can try, Emma interrupted with determination. Mr. Whitmore, do you have friends who can help us find more information about what really happened to Daddy? Before James could answer, his security chief called with urgent news. Mr. Whitmore, we've detected surveillance vehicles outside the building. Someone's been watching your penthouse since this afternoon. James felt a chill of fear. How many vehicles? 3 that we've identified. Professional operation. I recommend increasing security immediately. Emma overheard and looked at her mother with understanding beyond her years. He's trying to scare us because we're telling the truth about him. Sarah pulled Emma close, protectively. Maybe we should stop here. We've proven the contract was fraudulent. That should be enough. No, Mama, Emma said firmly. If we stop now, he'll just hurt other people. And he'll never pay for what he did to Daddy. James made a decision. Emma's right. But from now on, we do this safely. I'm hiring the best private investigators in the country to dig into Al-Mansouri's background. We'll find the truth about Michael's death legally and carefully. Margaret Stevens arrived an hour later with news from the courthouse. The judge wants to reconvene tomorrow for Al-Mansouri's response to Emma's testimony. But I'm hearing rumors that he's planning something desperate. What kind of rumors? Sarah asked anxiously. His legal team is talking about filing countercharges against us for defamation and harassment. They're also claiming Emma was coached to lie on the stand. Emma looked up indignantly. I wasn't coached, I just told the truth. We know that, sweetheart, Margaret said gently. But Al-Mansouri is desperate now. Desperate people do dangerous things. James's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Drop the case or face consequences. He showed it to the others without letting Emma see. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the threatening message. That's it, James declared. We're not backing down, but we're also not taking any chances. Round-the-clock security for all of us until this is over. Emma nodded approvingly. Good, because tomorrow I want to tell the judge about the timeline I made. People need to know the truth about what Mr. Al-Mansouri really did. Her courage in the face of danger inspired everyone in the room, but also reminded them that they were no longer just fighting a legal battle, they were fighting for their lives. The next morning brought shocking news that changed everything. Margaret called at dawn with an urgent update that sent chills through the penthouse. James, Al-Mansouri didn't show up for court today. His lawyers filed an emergency motion claiming he's returned to the Middle East due to a family crisis, but my sources say he fled the country overnight. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and fear. Does this mean we're safe? Not necessarily, Margaret replied grimly. It could mean he's even more dangerous now. People don't usually run unless they're guilty of something much worse than contract fraud. Emma, who had been listening intently, spoke up with startling clarity. He ran away because he knows we're going to prove he killed Daddy. Running away makes him look guilty. James's private investigator, Detective Lisa Rodriguez, arrived with files that would blow the case wide open. I've been working all night on the Michael Mitchell case. What I found is explosive. She spread documents across the dining table. Michael Mitchell wasn't killed in an equipment malfunction. Military records show his vehicle was sabotaged. The investigation was buried because it implicated Al-Mansouri in an international arms-dealing operation. Sarah gasped, her worst fears confirmed. They murdered my husband. The evidence suggests yes. Michael had discovered Al-Mansouri was selling American weapons to terrorist organizations through fake oil deals. He was about to testify when he died. Emma studied the documents with her remarkable comprehension. So Mr. Al-Mansouri killed Daddy, then came after Mr. Whitmore to steal his company and hide his crimes. That's exactly what happened. Detective Rodriguez confirmed. Al-Mansouri needed to disappear into legitimate business, and taking over Whitmore Industries would have given him perfect cover. James felt rage and determination burning in his chest. What can we do to bring him to justice? The FBI is already involved. Your case gave them the missing pieces they needed to reopen the investigation into Michael's death and the arms dealing operation. Emma looked up from the papers with tears in her eyes but steel in her voice. Will they arrest him? They're trying, sweetheart, but he's fled to a country that doesn't extradite to the United States. However, these documents prove his guilt, and that's a kind of justice. Sarah knelt beside Emma. Your daddy would be so proud of you for uncovering the truth. I'm not done yet, Emma declared with surprising determination. I want everyone to know what kind of person Mr. Al-Mansouri really is. I want to tell the world that he's a murderer and a liar. Margaret smiled at Emma's courage. The judge wants to see us this afternoon. With Al-Mansouri gone and this new evidence, we can not only clear James completely, but also expose the entire conspiracy. That afternoon, the courtroom was packed with media as Judge Harrison reviewed the new evidence. Emma testified again, this time about her father's death and Al-Mansouri's pattern of deception. Your Honor, Emma said clearly, Mr. Al-Mansouri didn't just lie about the contract. He killed my daddy and tried to destroy Mr. Whitmore's life to cover up his crimes. That's not business, that's evil. The judge nodded gravely. Based on this evidence and Mr. Al-Mansouri's flight from jurisdiction, I'm dismissing all charges against Mr. Whitmore and ordering a full investigation into these serious allegations. As they left the courthouse, reporters surrounded them. Emma spoke into the cameras with remarkable composure. My daddy died protecting our country from bad people. Today, we made sure his sacrifice mattered. James looked at Sarah and Emma, realizing that while they had won the legal battle, they had become a family in the process. Some victories were worth more than money. They were worth everything. 3 months later, the aftermath of the Al-Mansouri scandal had transformed all their lives in ways none of them could have imagined. James's company not only survived, but thrived, as investors flocked to support the businessman who had been vindicated by a 7-year-old hero. Emma had become an international sensation, invited to speak at schools and legal conferences about the importance of truth and courage. But the most significant change was happening quietly in the penthouse where Sarah and Emma had made their temporary home permanent. What had started as a security arrangement had blossomed into something none of them had dared to hope for, a real family. Mama, do you think Mr. James likes us enough to want us to stay forever? Emma asked one evening as she worked on her homework at the kitchen island. Sarah smiled, her heart full as she watched James help Emma with her Arabic pronunciation. What do you think, sweetheart? I think he loves us, Emma said matter-of-factly, and I think you love him too. I can tell by the way you look at each other when you think I'm not watching. James overheard and walked over, his expression tender. Emma, you're the smartest 7-year-old in the world. What would you think if I asked your mama to marry me? Emma's face lit up with pure joy. I think Daddy would want Mama to be happy again, and you make her smile the way she used to smile before Daddy died. Sarah felt tears of happiness streaming down her face as James pulled out a ring box. Sarah Mitchell, you and Emma saved my life in every way that matters. Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life protecting and loving both of you? Yes, Sarah whispered, barely able to speak through her tears. Yes, of course. Emma clapped her hands with delight. This means I get to be in a wedding, and Mr. James will be my new daddy. The engagement ring sparkled in the evening light, but it was nothing compared to the radiance of their happiness. They had found each other through tragedy and struggle, but their love had grown from mutual respect, shared values, and the unbreakable bond of having fought for justice together. 6 months later, the wedding was held in Central Park, with Emma as the maid of honor. She wore a beautiful purple dress that matched her extraordinary eyes, and she carried a bouquet of white roses in memory of her father, Michael. In her wedding speech, Emma spoke with the wisdom that had first saved James's company. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. But if we're brave enough to tell the truth and strong enough to help each other, good things can come from bad things. My daddy is in heaven, but he sent me and Mama to Mr. James so we could all take care of each other. So, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience as this remarkable 8-year-old explained how love could triumph over loss, how courage could overcome fear, and how truth could defeat even the most powerful lies. As James and Sarah danced their first dance as husband and wife, Emma sat with Margaret Stevens, now her honorary grandmother, watching with satisfaction. "You did good, little lawyer," Margaret whispered. "We all did good," Emma replied with a smile that could light up the world. Above them, the stars twinkled like diamonds, and somewhere among them, Michael Mitchell looked down on his family with pride, knowing that his sacrifice had ultimately led to their greatest happiness. 1 year after the wedding, the Mitchell-Whitmore family had settled into a rhythm of love, purpose, and joy that amazed everyone who knew them. Emma, now 8 and even more brilliant than before, had started a foundation with James to help military families and children with exceptional abilities. Sarah had returned to nursing part-time at a children's hospital, finding fulfillment in helping others while being present for her family. The morning that would bring their greatest challenge yet started like any other. Emma was in the kitchen, effortlessly switching between English and Arabic as she helped James prepare for a business call with international partners. Sarah was getting ready for work, humming softly, a sound that still made James's heart skip with gratitude. Then the doorbell rang, and everything changed. 2 FBI agents stood at their door, with news that would test everything they had built together. "Mrs. Mitchell-Whitmore, we have an update on the Al-Mansouri case that you need to hear immediately." Agent Patricia Davis, a kind-faced woman with steel in her eyes, sat down with the family in their living room. "Al-Mansouri has been captured. He's being extradited to the United States to face charges for your husband's murder, arms dealing, and multiple counts of international fraud." Emma looked up from her cereal, her violet eyes serious beyond her years. "Does this mean we have to testify again?" "Yes, sweetheart. Your testimony will be crucial in putting him away forever. But this time, it's not just about business fraud. It's about justice for your father and stopping a dangerous criminal from hurting anyone else." Sarah felt a familiar surge of protective fear. Will Emma be safe? Al-Mansouri's been in hiding for over a year. He might be desperate enough to try anything. Agent Davis nodded seriously. "We're taking extraordinary security measures. This case has international implications, and we cannot afford to let anything happen to our star witness." James reached for Sarah's hand, their bond stronger than ever after months of marriage. "Whatever you need from us, we'll do it. Al-Mansouri needs to face justice for what he did to Michael and all his other victims." Emma stood up with the determination that had first impressed them all in that courtroom over a year ago. "Agent Davis, I want to testify, not because I have to, but because it's the right thing to do. My daddy died trying to stop bad people, and now I can finish what he started." Over the following weeks, Emma prepared for what would be the most important testimony of her young life. This time, she wouldn't just be exposing contract fraud, she would be helping to convict a murderer and international criminal. The night before the trial, as Emma slept peacefully in her princess-themed bedroom, James and Sarah talked quietly about how their extraordinary daughter continued to amaze them. "She's not just brilliant," Sarah whispered, watching Emma sleep. "She has Michael's sense of justice and your determination. She's going to change the world someday." "She's already changed our world," James replied, holding his wife close. "Tomorrow, she's going to change the world for a lot of other people too." And as they prepared for the biggest legal battle of their lives, the family that had been forged in crisis stood ready to face their future together. Emma had taught them all that truth was more powerful than lies, love was stronger than hate, and courage was the greatest gift anyone could possess. The trial would test all of those beliefs, but they faced it as a family, unbreakable, unafraid, and unstoppable in their pursuit of justice. The federal courthouse buzzed with international media attention as the trial of Rashid al-Mansouri began. This time, Emma wasn't just testifying about contract fraud. She was helping to convict her father's killer and expose an international criminal conspiracy that had tentacles reaching across 3 continents. Now 8 years old, and even more poised than before, Emma took the witness stand wearing a simple blue dress and a necklace with her father's military dog tags. Her violet eyes were clear and determined as she faced the man who had destroyed her family and nearly ruined James's life. Al-Mansouri sat in shackles, his formerly pristine appearance now haggard after months in hiding. When Emma entered the courtroom, his eyes followed her with a mixture of hatred and grudging respect for the child who had brought down his empire. "Emma," the federal prosecutor began gently, "can you tell the court what you discovered about Mr. Al-Mansouri's business dealings with your father's military unit?" Emma spoke clearly, her voice carrying throughout the packed courtroom. "My daddy was investigating Mr. Al-Mansouri for selling weapons to terrorists while pretending to be an oil businessman. When daddy found proof, Mr. Al-Mansouri had him killed to keep the secret." "How do you know this?" "Because after Mr. Al-Mansouri killed daddy, he came to America and tried to steal Mr. James's company using fake contracts. He thought if he became a big American businessman, nobody would suspect him of being a criminal. But criminals always make mistakes." Al-Mansouri's lawyer objected repeatedly, but Emma's testimony was backed by FBI evidence, military records, and international intelligence reports. Her clear, honest words painted a picture of systematic corruption and murder that left the jury visibly shaken. When Al-Mansouri's lawyer cross-examined her, Emma remained unshakable. "You're asking me if I might be wrong about what these documents say," she replied calmly. "But I'm not wrong, and deep down, you know I'm not wrong either." The trial lasted 3 weeks, but Emma's testimony was the moment everyone remembered. Video clips of the brave 8-year-old confronting her father's killer went viral around the world, inspiring children and adults alike to stand up for truth and justice. When the guilty verdict was announced, life in prison without parole for murder, plus additional sentences for arms dealing and fraud, Emma stood quietly beside James and Sarah, tears streaming down her face. "Is it over now?" she asked softly. "Yes, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, holding her daughter close. "It's finally over." Outside the courthouse, Emma spoke to the gathered reporters one last time. "My daddy always said that truth is like light. It finds a way to shine through even the darkest places. Today, we proved that no matter how rich or powerful bad people are, truth and love will always win." 5 years later, Emma Mitchell Whitmore graduated from high school at age 13, fluent in 9 languages, and accepted to Harvard Law School with a full scholarship. Her parents, James and Sarah, watched from the audience as their extraordinary daughter gave the valedictorian speech. "My story started with tragedy," Emma told her classmates and their families. "My father died, my family almost lost everything, and a powerful criminal nearly destroyed innocent people. But sometimes our worst moments lead to our greatest victories. I learned that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right, even when you are afraid." She paused, looking directly at James and Sarah. "I learned that families aren't just about blood. They're about choosing to love and protect each other no matter what. And I learned that one person, even a 7-year-old girl, can change the world if she's brave enough to tell the truth." The audience erupted in applause as Emma concluded, "My father gave his life defending truth and justice. Today, I promise to spend my life doing the same, because that's what families do. We finish what each other started." James wiped tears from his eyes as he watched his adopted daughter, brilliant, brave, and destined for greatness, step into a future bright with endless possibilities. Sarah squeezed his hand, their love story complete, but their adventures just beginning. Emma Mitchell Whitmore, the little girl who had saved a billionaire and brought down an international criminal, was ready to save the world. And with the love and support of her family behind her, there was no limit to what she could accomplish. Truth had triumphed, love had conquered all, and justice had prevailed, just as it always does when good people refuse to give up hope.